Brothers and sisters, welcome. And a special welcome to anyone here who's not a Catholic. I can tell there are just lots and lots of non-Catholics here because this is the first funeral in church history to start almost on time. So a special welcome to all here. And one of the things that might be a surprise to those here who aren't Catholic is, this is also last week, isn't it? Our celebration of Christmas isn't just one day, but it's a celebration that overflows on the days and weeks afterwards for us. Because for us, and actually very significantly for us, coming around the Lord's altar here today, for us, this astonishing fact of God becoming one of us so that we could become one with Him, this astonishing fact is just way too significant to be celebrated just on one day. And so we allow our celebration to overflow on these days and weeks. This is extremely important for all those who are disciples of Jesus because it's a forcible reminder to us that Jesus is our big brother who comes to take each of us by the hand and by the heart and lead us by that way that He knows through death to new and astonishing and glorious eternal fullness of life. Our God is not afraid of death. Our God enters so completely into our lives that He went through death itself, that great fact of life for us. He was not afraid to enter into death and pass through it like a door. It doesn't hit us we don't hit it like a wall. We move through it like a door, and Jesus shows us the way. So our Christmas ornaments are staying up for a while longer and will just be a constant reminder of Dan and all of you who love him best and miss him most. The family have chosen a prayer for us to begin here. Loving Creator, we lift up the soul of our beloved who's left this world in deep pain. Wrap him now in your boundless mercy, where sorrow is eased and wounds are healed. May Dan find the peace that eluded him in life. May he rest in the light of your eternal love. Comfort the hearts of all who love and miss Dan. Help us to remember his laughter, his kindness, the moments that made him who he was. Give us strength to walk through the valley of grief and courage to hold on to hope. May love be the thread that binds us to him until we meet once again in your presence. Amen. We've got some folks who are going to come forward and share memories and reflections here with us, and Jared is going to be the first.
Dan was my best friend. We've been close friends for most of our lives, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about him. Dan and I met when we were probably about 12 years old. I had just joined the Boy Scouts, and I didn't know very many people there. And on my first night, I remember being very overwhelmed. There were a lot more kids than I expected, and I didn't really know anybody. I wasn't prepared for structured and ceremonial it was, and how many rules you had to follow. So right from the start, I wasn't really enjoying it that much. And I noticed another kid who didn't seem to be enjoying it much either. He was kind of goofing around, not taking it very seriously. I was too shy to put myself out there like that, but this guy wasn't. And that's how I met Dan. At that time, he was this hyperactive kid, literally bouncing off the walls and goofing around, but in a way that was genuinely very funny and made me want to be his friend. We even had a little inside joke right from that first night, and I remember years later when we were in university at the bar, he pulled it out and said it, and I couldn't believe that he actually remembered it all those years later. And that's the first thing that I want to tell you about Dan. He was very thoughtful and intentional about things like that. Moving forward a few years to high school, Dan and I hadn't seen much of each other. When my girlfriend at the time, who went to a different high school, started bringing me to parties with her friends. I remember walking into this really fun seeming party and seeing Dan and about 2 or 3 other guys blaring punk music and having a mosh pit in somebody's parents' home office. The parties at my school were not like that, and I had a hard time finding other kids who were interested in punk rock and skateboarding. So this party and hanging out with Dan and his friends felt like a revelation to me. These guys are doing exactly what I wished I was doing. And Dan was in a band, just like I was, and we were into a lot of the same music and movies and all the things that matter a lot when you're a teenager. As usual, Dan went out of his way to include me and make me feel welcome with his friends. And that's the second thing I want to tell you about Dan. He always made people feel welcome and included. So then we'll move forward another few years to university, and I remember feeling very isolated during that time because almost all of my close friends had moved away, either to travel or to go to school in different cities, and I didn't feel like I had a lot of friends. I was out in the movie, and I bumped into Dan, and he had just moved back after doing his first 2 years of university at a different school in Eastern Canada. He had his hair dyed multiple neon colors, and was dressed exactly how I remembered him, like a punk kid who was really doing his own thing and didn't care what anybody thought about it. I had been playing in a band, and we didn't have a bass player, and I remember that Dan played bass, so I asked him on the spot if he wanted to join the band. That band didn't end up doing much or lasting very long, but during that time is when Dan and I started to hang out pretty much every day. And that's another thing I want to let you know about Dan, because he was always open to trying new things and putting himself out there. Another time, Dan called me up out of the blue, absolutely breathless with excitement. He had just been to an underground DJ show for the first time, and he couldn't wait to tell me about it. His exact words were something like, "I'm not doing bands anymore, I'm going to learn how to DJ." And we started going to every single electro rave show that came to your town. We were absolutely obsessive. True to his word, he saved up some money and bought some turntables. And for a few years after that, we camped out in Wendy Lloyd's basement pretty much every single day and taught ourselves how to DJ. I wasn't going to say this joke, but I'm going to. I remember Lloyd shouting down the stairs at us, "What the hell are you guys doing? It sounds like the record's skipping." But they were always very supportive of what we were trying to do and put up with a lot. Before long, we would go to DJs at university parties, doing the odd club night together. And most special of all, we were the resident DJs at a local festival called Muckwa. DJing those university parties, and especially those sets at Muckwa with Dan, are some of my favorite memories. And it's another thing I want you to know. Any time that you spent with Dan always felt special and fun. One thing that Dan said during his toast at my wedding was how we always just tried to have fun and, in his words, do rad stuff. For a while, we were screening horror movies in an old historic schoolhouse and throwing our own semi-legal DJ nights back when the Calgary scene was a lot smaller. He was always the one with the ideas and doing really most of the organizing. I was mostly just the one for the ride. Dan was also a really great snowboarder. That was a big part of his life. I was never a big snowboarder, so I don't have very much to share about that, but I did want to mention Dan's love for the mountains and the outdoors, and how he would wish and pray for good snow days and get up at the crack of dawn, often after DJing or being up all night to get in some good runs. Dan and I traveled a lot together. We couch surfed and met lifelong friends in Austin. We backpacked in South America. Some of my favorite trips of my life were visiting Dan here in LA. From the very first time, our friend Lee and I came down when Dan had only lived here a couple of months and was living in Koreatown, to the time I stayed with him for a week in his East Hollywood place, to the many trips my wife Cecilia and I took to meet up with Dan and Sarah in different cities along the West Coast. Dan was the best to travel with. He would use his deep knowledge of history and architecture to point out all these great things that you would otherwise never even notice. On a trip to LA last fall, Dan took us to a restaurant that had amazing architecture. And after we'd been sitting there for a while, he casually mentioned that he had led the restoration project. That was another thing about Dan. He was incredibly intelligent and successful in everything that he set out to do, including his career. But he was always very humble about his accomplishments. I don't know if I ever told Dan just how proud of him I was, from finding the love of his life in Sarah and the life they built together, to all his professional success, to how loved he was by everyone who knew him, and of course what an amazing father he was. I never saw him happier than when he was with Sarah and his family. Whenever I spend time with Genevieve, it's so obvious what an exceptionally thoughtful and generous young person Dan and Sarah have raised. When Cecilia and I were in LA last year, Genevieve was getting ready to go to a Halloween party and was concerned that we didn't have costumes, even though we weren't going to the party. She went to her costume chest and got us some costumes just so that we wouldn't feel left out. And if that's not a classic Dan move, I don't know what is. Another time in Palm Springs, we had spent part of the afternoon going to thrift stores, and Genevieve kept asking her parents to buy things, but nothing for her. She was exclusively thinking of other people, saying things like, "Can we get this necklace for Grandma Wendy?" Or, "This would make such a nice Christmas present for Grandma Cindy." It stuck with me because it was such an unselfish way of thinking for someone that age. When I think about how I want to explain who Dan was to Genevieve and Colette, I would say that he was incredibly selfless, generous and kind, hilariously funny, and amazingly intelligent. He was a true source of support for me and for everyone in his circle. He made me feel safe, understood, cared for, and seen. Right after Dan passed, all the close friends circle in Calgary got together, and none of us could think of a single bad memory with Dan. That's not to say that nothing bad ever happened, but with Dan, it was easy to make the best of it and share a few laughs along the way. Every time any of us shared with Dan was just fun, plain and simple. These stories have only scratched the surface of the kind of man he was. Anyone of his close friends could point to just as many examples of the fun times, the big laughs, and the great stories we had with him. He was a loving husband and father, and a wonderful friend to me and so many others, and we're all better for having known him.
Thank you, Jared. I think it might be important to say there are lots and lots of really little people here, and you might have seen that Colette was reminding us all where the real center of the universe is, just here. But just please know that at St. Jude's, we only worry when they don't make noise. So little people are most welcome here. At this time, Dan's brother Doug and his sister Shannon are going to share some memories with us here too.
Our big brother, Dan, was born on April 24th, 1986 in Calgary, Alberta. I came into this world 4 years after him, and our sister followed 2 years later. The gap between us seemed to shift in size with each phase of our lives. When I was little, I remember thinking that he was practically from a different generation. We fought, close in an arm's reach brotherly way, but the gap seemed huge at the time. In the way that age warps time, he was an adult in my eyes pretty much from the start. Then the gap started to shrink. With each passing year, even as we lived further and further apart, our age difference became more and more trivial, and I was enjoying that that gap was getting smaller. Even though we didn't see each other very often, each time we saw each other, it felt like we were picking up where we left off. And like we were somehow closer than we ever were as kids. As the eldest, he was the trailblazer of the three of us, doing everything first, both the good and the bad. He was the first of us to learn how to read, to ride a bike, to go away for school, to get a job, to adopt a dog, to get married, to have children. And with him gone, we've lost our brother, but also our front runner.
As a baby and as a kid, I don't know if you know this, it's quite a miracle. He never got tired. This might remind you of someone. On occasion, his eye might get tired or his face might get tired, but he, Dan, never got tired. He hated going to bed. He was always a let's do it kid, in part because L's are very hard to pronounce when you're little. But he loved doing everything, skiing, swimming, the outdoors, anything and everything. And when he got fresh air, especially that crisp mountain air that Jared spoke about, it was a complete reset. Dan loved snowboarding and skiing, and nothing changed his mood more than a bluebird sky day and making some turns in the Rockies. Dan's deep capacity for caring for others was undeniable. Even from a young age, when most kids are still learning how to be empathetic, Dan had a natural tendency to put us and others first. Admittedly, there are so many stories of how Dan showed up for us as kids and later as adults, when the physical space between us grew even as the age gap seemed to narrow. However, looking back through my now very misty eyes, there is one story that keeps shining from my perspective. So it takes place when Dan was only 12 years old, and it was supposed to be an uneventful evening. It was the first time our big brother was trusted with babysitting his two younger and unfortunately very uncoordinated younger siblings. I think Mom and Dad had maybe been gone all of 20, maybe 30 minutes when I took a tumble down the stairs and cracked my forehead open on the banister. I came down bloody, crying, and Dan appeared very calm, although I'm sure he was freaking out a bit. It's hard to recollect. I was no doubt hysterical, but he did everything you're supposed to do, you know, and they say in the face of an emergency, it really shows the essence of a person. He did first aid, he phoned my parents, he calmed down his crying little sister, and presumably his equally distraught younger brother.
His love was also self-effacing. The only time he took himself too seriously was the awkward teenage years. After that, he was almost allergic to praise and loved to make light of positive achievements and occasionally dwell on the negatives. He had a huge heart, but a vanishingly small ego. I admire this about Dan, the way he would pull back to let others shine. But I think I speak for many of us when I say that Dan could have taken more credit and accepted a bit more praise for what a remarkable person he was.
Dan always wanted a family. Fresh out of his undergraduate degree from the University of Calgary, when my mom would ask him, where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, you know, he'd always say, I'm not sure, but I really want to be married with kids. I really hope that's where I'm at. And potentially a dog, because dogs and kiddos love Dan alike, from a young age all the way in his life.
Shannon graciously gave me
This story.
the best joke in this entire thing, so we'll see how well that goes. For instance, Dan went away to the east coast of Canada for the first few years of university, and when he did, he left behind our family dog Tipper, who had selected Dan as her favorite member of the household from birth. When he came back from winter break, Dan was understandably busy with friends, so busy that he didn't have any time for Tipper. Expressing without words how miffed she was with Dan's disappearing act, she surreptitiously collected a frozen present from outside, brought it into the house, and as Dan watched, hopped onto the bed, deposited it on his pillow, turned to glare at him, and then left the room. Luckily, none of us ever expressed our love for Dan in quite that way ever again, but we all loved him so much. When Genevieve was born, it was obvious, despite all the stress and sleepless nights, that he had finally realized his dream. And that dream only grew and evolved when Colette came into the world this year, last year. The joy that radiated from Dan when he was with his wife and daughters was absolutely infectious. His love was quiet and gentle. He was never the sort of person to draw attention to himself or make a big fuss about anything. But he made his love known through the smallest things, repeated again and again.
Although his love was quiet and gentle, our love, in contrast, was maybe a little loud. I think we both really excelled at being the annoying younger siblings. I know I, as the younger sister, really rose to that challenge again and again. As a kid, I idolized Dan in several ways. Like many younger siblings, I put both of my brothers on pedestals that as I grew eventually did become more eye-height. In grade 1, my favorite movie was unironically Lucky Lucky Hudson, a film noir fever dream of a junior high musical starring none other than Daniel Herrick as Two-Gun Tommy. It was a character role, but even as supporting cast, Dan shone so brightly. Later, when Dan returned to finish his undergraduate degree at Calgary, and I was in high school in that time, I was elated when he invited me to come to the Beltline to see a Neckbeard concert. Now, Dan was in several bands, one of which was, of course, the Neckbeards, and there was something about not only driving all the way to the Beltline, but seeing Dan front and center with his friends, ripping on a bass guitar in flannel with suspenders and jean cutoffs or jorts. That was just so pure and silly goofiness that was just so magical and quintessentially him. I was also shocked at how similar the Neckbeards' music was to La Tigre, for a little bit of a reference. In particular, I didn't realize that Dan had such an amazing vocal range. His falsetto really was quite impressive. Afterwards, when I stuck around to say hi to my rock star older brother, I remember how genuinely grateful he was that I came and how that was quite equally shocking to me. I truly believe that there are some goodbyes that we will never be ready for. No amount of time, no amount of preparation, we will just never be ready for them. Regardless of when, I sincerely doubt we'd ever be ready to say goodbye to our big brother.
Even though we can't see you, we know that you're not really gone. You're here with us in the smiles of your daughters, in the memories of your goofy laugh. No matter how much we are hurting right now, and our lives are infinitely better for having known you. And I hope that wherever you are, resting and at peace, you know how much you are loved.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Doug. Sarah, please.
Good morning. Thank you The overwhelming support from the girls and me has been really helping me survive, and the love and shared grief for Dan is so evident. Practiced this so many times that it was okay. Okay. The circumstances around an unexpected death like this are so tragic and confusing, but I ask that everyone remember Dan for who he really was. A world traveler and adventurer, a lover of the mountains in all seasons, and a man who loved his family above all else. And these are all things you heard from Jared, Doug, and Shannon. I want to share a little bit about our time together. I first met Dan at the orientation to our Masters of Heritage Conservation program. We instinctively clicked. He was witty and funny and so smart, and he loved the snow, sometimes hard to find in Los Angeles. We had several trips to ski hills as friends, at the time mostly Mammoth and Tahoe. Dan always hung back with me when I couldn't keep up, and he gave me tips on pointing my skis or planting my poles. He was a snowboarder when I first met him, but I'll never forget the one time he rented some skis for fun. It was apparently the first time he'd been on skis in over a decade, and he absolutely smoked everyone that we were with. He was most himself in the snow. And think about we had a long New Year's Eve night in Granada, Spain, partying in the streets. And the next morning, he kind of spontaneously rallied me very early, unfortunately, but to get on the bus to ski in the original Sierra Nevadas. So much a part of his life. And he also taught me that a very critical part of any ski trip is the patio years. So I appreciated that as well. It took us years of being friends to get together, which happened after a trip to Vegas for Viva Las Vegas, which was an annual rockabilly music festival. He was a natural on the dance floor, and that's why I fell in love with him back. We did like to joke that it was love at first sight for him. He taught me to swing dance that trip, and we never stopped. This was one of the best things and one of the things I will miss most about him. We were so connected and in love on the dance floor. After our wedding, so many people asked us about our choreographed first dance, but it was actually all Dan at the moment. There was no choreography. Dan and I had several years together before we decided to have kids. These were filled with long road trips to Canada and around the West, usually in his RAV4. I love remembering how he taught me to drive stick driving through the Navajo Nation after we camped out at Mesa Verde. He was so patient with me and my initial fear of letting go of the clutch. Patience was something Dan just had in multitudes. Another memorable camping trip was our trip to Mount Whitney, where I severely overpacked my bag, and Dan ended up carrying a lot of extra weight for me. No one thought that we would summit after one of the coldest camping nights for anyone in the group, but nevertheless we did it. And then we had one of the best sandwiches of our lives at Shots afterwards. We had so many adventures, hiking, motorcycle rides, international travel, and plans to see so much more. When it was time, Dan was so excited to build our family together. We found out I was pregnant with Genevieve in Paris early 2020 after a case of jet lag that actually never went away. After using Google Translate to try to figure out the pregnancy test, Dan ran around Montmartre giddy while I followed around sick to my stomach. I think that there may be a picture in the program of him smiling in Paris. We first built our life together in Sacramento and met many of the people here today while we were up there. So I appreciate so many of you traveling down here to be with us. In Sacramento, we remodeled a kitchen while I was pregnant. I sat on the floor gluing together our kitchen cabinetry while he ran around putting the pieces together. We adopted our second dog, Minnie Bear, and Dan embraced his calling as a dog guide, something you've heard about already. And Dan made some true dad friends there too. These are people the girls and I will never let go of. All right. While I spoke about Dan being most himself on the dance floor and in the snow, both actually pale in comparison to Dan being a dad. Genevieve and Colette were the absolute pride of his life, and he naturally attracted all the other kids at any birthday party or event. Uncle Dan was always rolling on the floor floor with toddlers or getting covered in chalk or throwing kids in the pool. He devoted his life to our girls. He made breakfast, packed lunch, did bath time, read stories, sat with them until they fell asleep, far more often than I did. Genevieve called for him in the middle of the night, not Mommy. He was absolutely built for being a dad and loved every minute of it. The genuine joy he felt with every accomplishment Genevieve made was amazing. He was so proud when she learned a new skill or read her first word to him, which happened just a few weeks ago. We'd lay in bed after a long day, and he'd recount all the funny and amazing things that the girls did that day. Dan never forgot his Canadian roots, something he was proud to share with his girls. Just recently, he finalized Genevieve's Canadian citizenship, which we're all very excited about. Colette's next. He was so excited to show his daughters his favorite places in Canada and to introduce them to his friends and their kids, and all the family that lives in the area. I feel so lucky he brought me into that circle, and the girls and I will continue to keep those relationships close too. Back in LA, he got settled in with Genevieve at our new house and found out I was expecting Colette. We had so many house projects to keep us busy and new preschool friends, but we were so thrilled about a busy future with our two daughters. When people would ask Dan if he wanted to try to have a son, he was ecstatic to tell them that he was a girl dad. We were emailed Colette's gender results while we were at Disneyland, and he couldn't contain his excitement and had to tell Genevieve right away that she was going to have a sister. The most heartbreaking has been to relive stories of Dan with Genevieve. She has so many memories of his really stupid dad jokes and funny things like a character named Quackums that he made up. I am keeping a running list. Traveling didn't stop with the kids, and I'm glad that Genevieve got to experience trips with him. Paris for Christmas with the Herricks, and later Spain and Portugal with my family for my best friend's wedding. Like most dads, he was always the pack mule carrying gear, whether it was international travel or carrying all the toys, chairs, coolers, and towels to the beach in Tahoe. I'm going to miss all the adventures we had planned, but more than anything, I will miss just talking to him. He was one of the smartest people I know, whether it was historical or architectural facts or some nuance to a political situation in another country. He was always willing to chat and explain. Dan was selfless, always putting me and the girls first. I hope with our shared grief, we can find strength and comfort in recovery from this extremely difficult event. And I hope that you will join us at the reception. We do have plenty of room and outdoor tenting for the rain, and hope we can share more Dan stories. I'm so grateful for all of you being here for Dan, the girls, and me. I love you all, and I love you, Dan.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Sarah's chosen a couple of songs that we'll be hearing through the rest of our service here. Let's be attentive to one in particular right now.
Just remember that you are a fighter, a fighter. You never know just what tomorrow holds. And you're stronger than you know. You're stronger than you know. So hold on and don't let go. Hey, hold on and don't let go. Just take one step closer. Put one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light in the darkness. One step closer. Put one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light in the darkness. You're gonna be okay. And when the night is closing in, don't give up and don't give in. This won't last, it's not the end, it's not the end. You're gonna be okay. When the night is closing in, don't give up and don't give in. 'Cause this won't last, it's not the end, it's not the end. You're gonna be okay.
Garrett has a reflection for us to be attentive to.
Though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in the safe place in our hearts, where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Though your days here were brief, your spirit was alive, awake, complete. We look toward each other no longer from the old distance of our names. Now you dwell inside the rhythm of breath, as close to us as we are to ourselves. Though we cannot see you with outward eyes, we know your soul gazes upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything, to which we bring our best refinement. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find your presence beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness flows, and when music echoes eternal tones. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love, until we see your beautiful face again in the land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again.
Thank you, Garrett. You all look way too comfortable. Let's all stand. We stand at attention as the Lord speaks to us in the gospel here.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you.
At that time, Jesus answered, I give praise to you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth. For although you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned, you have revealed them to the childlike. Yes, Father, such has been your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father. And no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son wishes to reveal him. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves. For my yoke is easy and my burden light. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Please be seated. Especially in light of everybody's sharing here. Thank you all. Sarah, I feel really presumptuous, but I want to tell you what many of us here know would be Dan's words to you and to all three of his girls. I love you so much, and I'm sorry. But I'm just about to blow that presumptuous business up even more, because I think I know what God's words to Dan were in that last instant of his life. In light of today's gospel, maybe not so terribly presumptuous, but I think God's words to Dan in that moment were, "Come to me. Come to me, Dan." Jesus, Dan's big brother, says to him in that instant, "Come to me. Come to me, Dan, not because you've got your life tied up in a nice, neat little bow, not because you've got it all together, not because all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, but come to me because you're exhausted and you've tried everything." Now here's the really presumptuous part. Because Jesus says to Dan, "You haven't tried everything yet. Come to me. Come to me." Our God is a divine physician who has just exactly the medicine precisely prescribed for each one of us individually. And Dan, going to the divine physician now, is opened up not only to the love that God has for Dan. God loved Dan into life and shared him with us for these too few years. But it opens him up to even more of the love that you always surrounded him with. You always offered him, gave him, soaked him in. Now he's open not just to God's love, but to all of our love too, in a way that he wasn't able to take in its fullness before. Here's what God says, not just to Dan, but to all of you who love Dan best and miss him most. He says to all of us here, "Come to me. Come to me." Right now, as we come together, we're at a loss as to what we want to say. But it's most important that we simply show up here. Thank you for being here. It's most important that we listen to God, who's inviting all of us to come to him, to come within his circle of love, to come close to his heart. It's where Dan is. So it's where we want to be, huh? Let's RSVP in the affirmative to that invitation that God has certainly made to Dan, but that he makes to each of us right now, this morning. Let's all stand right now as Steph leads us in our prayer here. God, we come together seeking your comfort. We come before you in brokenness, trusting that you heal what seems impossible to mend.
The response is, hear our prayer. Today, we come together to seek your comfort. We come before you in our brokenness, trusting that you will heal what seems impossible to mend. When our thoughts feel clouded and our hearts feel weary, we come to you for light. Wash away the heaviness that clings to our spirits and breathe your peace into our minds. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. When we are anxious and feeling overwhelmed by the pressures of the world, replace every anxious thought with truth of your love and every shadow with warmth of your presence. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. During times of deep sadness and despair, we call on you for strength. Let your word be the anchor that steadies us, your spirit the gentle whisper that guides us forward. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. When nights feel long and the silence feels unbearable, remind us that love never truly ends. It lives on in our hearts and in our memories we hold close. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. We pray for those who are burdened from physical and mental illness. May they know your comfort through people who advocate with and for them. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Heavenly Father, our emotions are in turmoil. We need your healing touch. Comfort us, O God, in our sorrow. Restore our emotional health and renew our spirits. Give us strength to face the days ahead, courage to speak openly about our grief. Help us to find peace in you, trusting you will make us whole again.
Thank you, Steph. We speak our prayers, but we also sing our prayers. So we'll continue our prayer with this song here.
Please be seated. I'll wait for the standing ovation later. You have one thing to sing today, and it is Rest Now in Me. Can you play the G? Rest now in me. Can you sing that, please? Rest now in me. Every time the love of Vanna White here raises her hand, you're going to do that, okay? Ready? Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Rest now in me.
Rest now in
mystery of the kingdom. Come to me, all you labor, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart. Rest now in me. Rest now in me. For my yoke is easy and my burden light. Peace is my gift offered to you. Rest now in me. Rest now in me. I bring you peace the world cannot give. Rest now in me. Rest now in me. Oh, let all who have ears hear now the mystery of the kingdom. Come to me, all you labor, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart. Rest now in me. Rest now in me. For my yoke is easy and my burden light.
Let's take just a moment and, in the quiet of our hearts, say our goodbyes to Dan. It's not important that we put words on that goodbye. We can embrace him from our hearts and let that be enough and more than enough. faithful Creator. All things are of your making. All people are shaped in your image. And we now entrust Dan's soul to your goodness. In your infinite wisdom and power, work in him your merciful purpose, a purpose known to you alone from the beginning of time. Console the hearts of all who love Dan. Console them in the hope that all who trust in you will find peace and rest with Dan in your kingdom of light and life and love. Amen.
There will be no more darkness